Hey everybody, this is Marstead with my post-playthrough review of Her Story. This is going to be a little bit different from the other reviews so far because Her Story is such a short game, and it kind of even challenges the definition of the word game. So expect this review to be a bit shorter than some of the others. So let's kick things off with audience. Who should play Her Story? I want to say that I think everyone should play Her Story. It's simple enough in its approach. It definitely doesn't require that you be savvy with a controller. It's not a game in that respect. There's no dexterity checks. I think that as long as you are attracted in any way to puzzles, if you are attracted in developing your lateral thinking muscles, if you're good at Google searching, you can work out with that in Her Story. And if you're bad at Google searching, it'll help you to be better at it. It's a really unique approach to a game, and I think it's a strong argument for games as art. It's definitely not something that would work as a movie or a book. It has to be a video game for it to work the way it does. So, yeah, I think I would say that everyone should play it. Maybe if you don't enjoy puzzles or you would be very, very frustrated with the game if you were stuck for too long without a lead, you might not want to play it. Maybe it requires some modicum of patience, but I really am trying to struggle through a list of all the people that I know, and I can't think of anyone who wouldn't get some enjoyment out of this game. So to clarify that opinion a little bit, let me get into the spoiler-free description here, and I kind of need to be careful because I think that Her Story, like Life is Strange, is a game that works better the less you know about it. So I'll give a very light spoiler warning here. If you haven't played Her Story and me saying everybody should play it is enough to drive you to check it out, the game's only like 3 hours long, so you could knock it out in a sitting. I think I beat it in less than 3 hours. Stop listening now. Go play it real quick, and then you can listen to the rest of it later. We'll still try to be spoiler light. Okay, so the basic premise of this game is that you are at a police computer that has a database of video interviews with a live actress. She's some sort of suspect in a crime of some sort. This is clear from the very first video that you would watch. And the way that you learn more about the case is you can search for new videos by entering keywords. So you can enter the name of a person, you can enter the name of a place, an object, that sort of thing. And the kicker, the fundamental thing that makes the game work is that at any given time it only shows you the first 5 results, the first 5 search results for whatever term you enter. So if you put in the name of a really important character, it might return something like 70 results, but it will only show you the first 5, which seem to be calibrated to give you the least possible information. So you're rewarded for entering increasingly specific search queries to get the more interesting videos that are buried behind those additional search results. The way the game ends up playing out is that when you search, what it's really searching for is the captioned text of each of these interviews. So every single word she possibly says in each interview is captured and included as a potential search result. If she says the word book, if you search the word book, you'll find every single video in which she says book. So what you'll typically do in this game, and this can be the typical 2-hour session as the typical entire playthrough of the game, is you will enter a search term just off the top of your head. You will pay attention in the interview for the character to say some important thing, like maybe model of car or a name of a book or a name of a place, and then you will then say, I wonder if there's more information behind that. You'll then search on that book name or on that car model or on that place name and watch more videos and continue to do that as you try to piece together what happened in this story. The cathartic milestones in this game are very interesting because they're extremely rapid fire. It doesn't feel like a puzzle game, but it is one. Every time you watch a new video and you hear the person being interviewed reveal more crucial information or give you a new proper noun, and then you search on that proper noun and it gives you more results than you were expecting, you get this little rush of, oh man, I'm getting closer to the truth. So it's not going to be, hey, when I finish this session, am I going to feel accomplished? I would recommend that everybody play Her Story in a single session and not extend it over multiple playthroughs. You're going to beat it in like an hour and a half, 2 hours anyway. But yeah, it's kind of neat to play a game where every single time you do something in the game, it feels productive. Every search path you take is going to take you somewhere new. Whereas there's a lot of games where you'll play it for 2 hours and maybe only one productive thing will happen. I love Dark Souls, but I've definitely sat for 2 hours in Dark Souls and just gotten to a bonfire or just beaten a boss. But this game's short enough that it all feels cathartic. So taking that into the subsets of audience. Okay, so achievement gamers. You know, I don't think Her Story is for achievement gamers, because I think that achievement gamers would be the ones to say this isn't a video game. I think it absolutely is a video game. I would say that video games are interactive fiction, and the only thing that can even kind of start to interfere with gaming as a definition might be a visual novel, but even then there's some level of interactivity there. There's some ability to hover in an area or spend as much time learning about one subject and another subject that you can't really do with most books and with most films and TV shows. But anyway, even if you argue that this isn't a game, if you're trying to figure out what would an achievement gamer get out of Her Story, I think that would be trying to find every possible video, which might be exciting. It might also be laborious once you've kind of figured out what's going on in the story. I think finding all of the remaining videos might be more of a pain in the ass than interesting, but it's something that you could do if you really wanted to tap this game out. You could try to find every loose plot thread. The game does a pretty good job of showing you, critical events that you haven't found yet, so at least you know what you haven't seen, what you should still be looking for. And it offers some tools to the extent this game has a post game that will help you find more of those niche videos and Easter eggs and that sort of thing. So I think achievement gamers is really the only area where I might say, it's not necessarily your bag, but it's a short enough game that I think that you should probably play it anyway, even if it's, not developed with you in mind in the way something like Monster Hunter or Dark Souls might be. Exploration, well, there's nothing traditional to explore. I mean, you're not delving in a dungeon and you're not, exploring a world map, but this game, I would say exploration is learning more about the person being interviewed and trying more and more search queries and narrowing down your theory of what happened. It's really cool to continuously have an idea in your head of what you think happened and have that be challenged at every corner. And I think that the exploration side is approaching the truth, but having to work from different hypotheses on your way there. And it's neat in that it sort of assumes that you've put it together without ever overtly putting it together for you. There's a couple of videos that are a little bit more explicit than others that you can land on, but it's very nonlinear in that respect. It means that the game is basically zero replayability. Like, you're only ever going to play this game once, and it's going to be blind for it to be interesting. But it is cool to have a different path for everyone who approaches this game, that you're going to go on a very different series of search terms and a very different series of theories before you get to what actually objectively truly happened in the story. Flavor, it's really flavorful. It's a really cool mystery, and it's a well-crafted story, and it's presented in a way that's very accessible and understandable. I think it's going to make just about everybody raise their eyebrows at exactly the same points in each video and go, that's interesting, I want to follow up on that. But I think in this case, the flavor and the exploration are pretty married, so I won't linger too long in that section. Like I said, since it's such a short game, this review, we're going to be blitzing through it. The mechanics, so there's not terribly many mechanics, right? There's basically one, and that's searching for things. But I think the genius of Her Story, there's one critical keystone mechanic that makes the whole thing work, and it's the fact that you're limited in the number of search results that are presented to you. This game would be boring and solved quickly if, you typed in the name of an important character and it gave you 70 results, and you can just watch all 70 results. The developer has very carefully hand-selected which are the first 5 videos that appear for certain key nouns, and often they're selected in such a way as to put you down the wrong path, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the spoilers section. And that's really clever. That's hard to do if you think about the dev starting with a story, starting with what really happened and then trying to obfuscate it by working backwards and figure out how can we hint at what really happened and have a line of dialogue be technically true, but to someone who doesn't know the full picture be misleading. It doesn't feel like that when you're watching it. There are certain conspicuous vaguenesses of the things that the person being interviewed says here and there, but I don't think that they're corny. Like, it's well written and it's well implemented. So yeah, I think that the mechanics of this game are pretty brilliantly put together, and it's a really cool idea for someone to say, let's make a long goose hunt Google search into a video game. It ends up working really well. I think this is a really great example of a limitation being a huge positive for a game, that if you didn't have that limitation, the mechanic just wouldn't work. And it's crazy that you have one thing that's so important to making the whole thing work, and it works pretty beautifully. Style polish, I would almost say NA for this game. It's too short and too concise of an experience to really be polished or unpolished. I think that it's definitely good enough for what it sets out to do. It's not flashy and it's not meant to be flashy, and it really feels like you're browsing on an old police database computer. So I would say, yeah, it's got the right style and the right polish for what it is. I wouldn't want it to be Persona. That would be absurd for what you're playing here. It's good. And lastly, hype. Yeah, I mean, because this game is fundamentally unreplayable, it has zero replay value. I think that the big draw for this is to watch somebody else do it. You want to beat it, and you want to, get your friend to play it and watch them play it and watch them go down a completely different path and reach totally different conclusions than you did on the way. I think that that's what the hype element is. It's just the blind playthrough. There's not a giant community on Twitch that's just consuming her story blind playthroughs like you might see with Undertale or Dark Souls. But it is something that, I would throw on my following list and check out. If I saw a streamer that I liked playing it for the first time, I'd be like, ooh, I want to see how they get through this. I definitely, immediately after I beat it, I got my wife Andrea to play it because I wanted to see what she thought of it and how she progressed through it. And it's very interesting. I think that it's a game that is extremely, extremely sensitive to spoilers. If you are going to stream this game or you're going to watch a streamer, just watch out for it. Like, if you're the viewer, don't give anything away, and if you're the streamer, don't let people give things away. Make sure you have really aggressive bots when playing it, because it's important that you discover everything by yourself, far beyond almost any other game I've played. I've got a stricter spoiler policy than most, but I think that is what this game is about, figuring it out on your own, and any sort of hint, even saying if you're on the wrong track, ruins the experience. So just know that while it's very hype-filled, it's very, very, very sensitive to spoilers. To importance and strengths, well, it's a good game. Really, really good. I think I kind of went over its strengths already earlier. As far as whether it's important, it's a little bit too early to call. There isn't like Her Story 2, or it doesn't seem to really be a market yet for games in this genre, if this is a emerging genre. But I would love to play more games like this, to be honest. Like, concise stories that you have to piece together through searching for videos is a really cool idea. And I think that the setting of it being a police interrogation is great. You could make any number of those and kind of follow the same formula. I guess you'd probably want this particular developer to move on and make something different instead of making that forever, but I could totally see another indie dev making a Her Story-like game and it being just as satisfying. So it remains to be seen if it's important, but it is unique. I haven't heard of any other game that kind of shares a genre with it, and I would love to see someone else try. As far as opportunities, I don't think I really have any. This game is good at what it needs to be, and it doesn't really do anything wrong. I mean, I guess it's possible to get stuck, but yeah, I honestly don't know what it could do to help you get unstuck. You kind of just have to figure it out. There's no way for it to know if you need a hint. Maybe you keep searching for the same videos over and over, but even that, it's wouldn't be fun if it gave it away. So yeah, I don't think there's any opportunities for improvement. It's a good, concise, basically perfect experience. So spoiler divider number 2, if you don't want to know what the deal is with Her Story, now you should leave. And we're back. So standout moments, there's a couple natural points that I think you reach during this story that are red herrings. The big one, I think, is most people are going to suspect maybe the woman being interviewed has a multiple personality disorder. And I think it actually would be sort of unfortunate if you didn't land on that conclusion at some point. I think that I sort of got filtered into realizing that it wasn't multiple personalities, that it was twins. It was a prestige type situation earlier in my playthrough because people were disconfirming some of my speculating, which is part of why I say it's really important that you not spoil anything or give anything away in this game. But when you come to that conclusion early on, the videos are really good at kind of filtering you there. And then at some point, you're going to find a video that completely blows it out of the water. That says, no, this actually is two different people. They are completely different in every way. But it's fun, and it's interesting that that's kind of a convergent theory that I think a lot of players are going to get. It means that the developer did a really good job putting that together. I liked, each time you get an important piece of information, the screen flashes a little bit and you see the person who's using the computer. That was a nice touch. And the way the game wraps up to just kind of confirm that you are who you might suspect you are, just to remove any doubt you might have. I think the story would work really well if there was still uncertainty at the end, but it's nice that it's wrapped up, that you can be sure that you generally got the right narrative by the end of the story. Again, other issues? None really. Maybe it could have been a bit vaguer, or it could have been a little bit more open to interpretation at the end, but I don't know. There could have been parts of it that were more open to interpretation. I guess that's all I'll say. And final thoughts? I really liked her story. I thought it's great. At the time of this recording, I'm planning on doing a talk for the Rotary Club. It's this humanitarian club in this town we live in. Mostly people that are in like their 40s, 50s, and 60s that don't really understand video games. So I wanted to give a talk on games as art. I definitely wanted to cite her story as an example of that. It's something that's accessible to anybody. Someone in their 70s could play this game and kind of get what's going on and work their way through the puzzle. That's a really cool approach. It's something that you definitely couldn't do ever as a movie or a TV show. And it's just a really satisfying experience. And if, it's really not up your alley, it's not time lost because the game is so short that by the time you wrap it up, you didn't lose a lot of your life on it. So I think people should play her story. If you're listening this far, I hope you've already played it and didn't just get it all spoiled for you. I think you should get your friends to play it, watch them play, and, beyond everything else, shut up. Keep quiet. Don't say anything, no matter how much it drives you crazy. You can offer to give them help if they get stuck, to try to, nudge them in the right direction. But this game only really works if they know nothing and you don't say anything pointing in the right direction. So zip it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.